Hello, everyone. My name is Frank Mastronuzzi. I'm with Punch Financial, and welcome to another session of Just a Minute Accounting. In today's session, we're going to cover a very hot topic right now that we're getting a lot of questions on, and that maybe many of you have questions on, and that is, how do I record our PPP loan in our accounting records? It's very straightforward. There's 4 entries that you have to address and cover. And so we're going to walk through all 4 of them with you, high level, and enough to give you the basis of each entry. The first entry we're going to talk about is the actual receipt of proceeds of the loans, the disbursement. And the date that the disbursement happens is very key, because that's the date that the SBA will use to calculate your 8-week or 24-week period starting from the date of disbursement. And so we highly recommend that you create another GL account for cash and specifically and related to the PPP disbursement. Now, you don't necessarily need to open another bank account, and we're hearing that a lot from people. A lot of banks are saying that you should. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, that the SBA is just going to want to know exactly what you spent the money on, and having it booked to a separate GL account will help you do that. And so it'll facilitate the forgiveness application. So we say just the simple entry of recording debit to new cash and a credit to PPP loan payable. And that loan payable should be a long-term loan payable, because the terms are 24 months plus another 6 months of deferment, so 30 months. So that would qualify as a long-term and not short-term payable. The second entry is the most used entry in this transaction, and that's going to be recording the expenses that you're using the PPP loan proceeds for. So we highly recommend that you create a new GL account that's specific for the PPP loan expenses, and you track so that we can track exactly how much is being spent of the loan, and therefore what needs to be supporting the loan forgiveness application. And so we say, don't change your processes and try to book things and change what bank account it goes to. Book your payroll, your utilities, your rent in the normal fashion, and then make sure that at month end you're reclassifying those as PPP loan transactions, and then providing all the backup at that right point in time. So we do that at month end. Anything that's related to PPP, we move it over into a separate expense account, and we then drop in the support that's needed for that item. So whether it's an invoice, the utility, it's your rent, your invoice from your landlord, or your payroll journal ledger, those are the things we're doing. And the other reason is for tax purposes. As of today, the IRS is not allowing the expenses to be deductible on your tax return if the loan is forgiven. So you need to track what expenses were used on the PPP loan proceeds so that they're not deducted on your tax return. So the journal entries that we're seeing most on month end for each of the transactions is just reclassifying your payroll expense, so crediting payroll expense for $10K in this scenario, debiting your PPP loan related expenses. We then upload the payroll ledger that supports that payroll amount up into a file, a folder, Dropbox, whatever it is, so you can support that. And same thing with utilities and rent expense. So you want to keep moving all your transactions into the right GL account, and that way you're tracking how much you've spent to date, as well as providing support for your loan forgiveness. Now, here's one entry that we see 99.9% of people are forgetting, and that's calculating your loan interest payable. Now, don't forget that this is a loan which may or may not be forgiven later on. And for that reason, since it is a loan from the SBA, you need to record loan interest expense. Now, that may be forgiven too as part of the loan forgiveness program, but for now, you need to record your loan interest on a monthly basis as if you owed it, and it becomes due. So we say use a straight line calculation each month, what the outstanding principal balance is, and how many days of interest that month takes, and book that entry. So we're recording it as PPP loan interest expense, and we're crediting a PPP loan interest expense payable so that we can track what the loan interest expense is over time. And then when the loan is forgiven, we're able to extinguish both of these line items. And then lastly, on the date of forgiveness, so when you're notified of the loan forgiveness from the bank, you've applied, everything comes through, they're going to forgive it, then you extinguish the amounts that are forgiven. So in this instance, we're going to get the full $100,000 forgiven. We're going to get the $2,500 interest payable forgiven also. So we're going to debit those two payables because they're no longer payable to the SBA. And then we're going to credit other income, non-taxable, and we're going to label it as PPP. The reason why we're doing this in all these transactions is for one main point. Right now, if the loan is forgiven, the income is non-taxable to the entity, as well as the expenses are not deductible on your tax return. So you want to track both of these so that when you go to do your tax return with your tax firm, you're clearly identifying which items are taxable and which are not based on what happens. So by recording it and then extinguishing it, when you go to do your year-end tax return, which will be in 2021, your tax firm will love you because it's clear and they won't have to ask a million questions, and you're going to avoid a lot of headaches down the road trying to figure out what was used, what was not used, and what's trackable. So we hope you enjoyed this episode of Just a Minute Accounting. It, covering PPP loans is not easy because it's all new to all of us, and we're happy to help with any questions you may have. Please feel free to reach out to me at frank.m@punchfinancial.com or go to our website at www.punchfinancial.com and contact us and ask any questions related to the PPP loan forgiveness you want. Thanks and have a wonderful day.